Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the remote commission meeting of August 2nd, 2021 at the Port of Olympia. The Port is working diligently to address the threat posed by COVID-19 to Thurston County, the state of Washington, and the United States. On March 16, 2020, the commission adopted Resolution 2020-03, authorizing certain emergency powers in light of the COVID-19 outbreak, including invoking applicable emergency exemptions to meeting notice requirements on location restrictions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to Resolution 2020-03, the Port of Olympia Commission is conducting today's meeting remotely. The Port is following the guidance from Thurston County Health Department to take all efforts to prevent the spread of the virus and is acting in interest of the safety and welfare of the public, the community, and our employees to limit its spread. So do I have a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you, commissioners. We have an agenda. The first item is Puget Sound Energy Beyond Net Zero Carbon. Brandon Capps, welcome. Puget Sound Energy, a local government relations and public policy representative, and welcome Matt Perry, Puget Sound Energy Local Government Affairs and Public Policy Manager.
Hey everyone, how's my audio?
Perfect.
All right, give me 1 second here and we can get kicked off. Share my screen. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Capps, and I am a local government affairs and public policy representative for Puget Sound Energy, and I will be stepping in for Matthew Maurer in the interim. He left PSC to head toward the Port of Tacoma to be the local government affairs manager there, so we are wishing him the best in that effort. So yeah, I want to thank everyone for their time as we kind of go over PSC's new Beyond Net Zero Carbon Pledge, and we can delve into a lot of the nuances, and happy to answer any questions you may have today. All right, so to begin, one second here. For nearly 150 years, Puget Sound Energy has been the local energy provider for neighborhoods and communities across Washington. That accounts for 1/3 of all the electric and natural gas energy in our state. As the state's largest utility, our 3,100 employees are proud to keep the lights on and the heat running for more than 1.5 million customers. We continue to support customers impacted by COVID-19 while also continuing to lead on clean energy. While our communities recover, even more customers can benefit from a clean energy future. Proof points of this effort in action are the Crisis Affected Customer Assistance Program funds, which from 2020 to 2021 allocated more than $38 million in funds to help customers pay their energy bills. Programs and products targeted to low to moderate income customers, think community solar for low income customers, and there will be an income eligible portion that launches later in 2021. We've also continued to give to communities in support of COVID-19 relief. And as always, we also are pursuing energy efficiency programs wherever possible, because that's our ever moving conservation target. Excuse me. All right. So our customers want cleaner energy. And today we're really putting our stake in the ground and stating that we're equal to the task. We don't yet have all of the answers to how we will get there, but we believe that it's possible with the right combination of legislative, regulatory, commercial, and technological advances in this industry. We also know that a lot of important work is ahead as we balance our clean energy goals with customer expectations for uncompromised reliability, safety, and affordability. So by 2045, just to give you a little bit of detail here, we aspire to be a beyond net zero carbon energy company. And this is really an ambitious and aspirational goal that supports our North Star of being our customers' clean energy partner of choice. Beyond net zero, to kind of get into the semantics here, means that PSE will reduce its carbon footprint to net zero, and then we will go beyond to help others achieve reductions in other sectors such as transportation. Beyond net zero carbon gives us a holistic view that encompasses our entire energy supply, both electric and natural gas, our operations, and the positive impact we can have on other industries and sectors. We have decades of experience with renewable energy products, conservation, and innovation, and we will leverage those, but we will also need the support and cooperation from key stakeholders to achieve this success. All right. And so PSE has a collection of really 3 primary commitments and aspirational goals to reach its beyond net zero carbon by 2045 commitment. And the first would be PSE operations and electric supply and carbon emissions. So this commitment really outlines our commitment to reducing carbon emissions from PSE electric and gas operations and electric supply to net zero by 2030. And by 2045, PSE will have 100% carbon-free electric supply. We also have PSE natural gas sales for customer end use carbon emissions, and that's our aspirational goal to reach net zero carbon emissions for natural gas sales by 2045, with an interim target of 30% emissions reduction by 2030. And then lastly, we have beyond PSE, that's our reported carbon emissions. Our goal to partner with customers and industry to identify programs and products that cost effectively reduce carbon across sectors and across our region and state, most importantly. Examples of this would include transportation through EV deployment and the support of low carbon fuel standards, upstream methane emission reduction, and renewable natural gas projects for municipal solid waste, agricultural waste, and forestry sources, respectively. Now, key supports measures to really get this off the ground and accomplish these objectives, first and foremost would be efficient siting and permitting of renewable transmission lines and generation. That's really imperative for us to move forward in this industry, but also a link to other Western jurisdictions for cap and trade programs to maximize energy efficiency for carbon and energy markets, as well as the investment in technological advancements, such as exploring technologies to close any emissions gaps, including carbon negative emissions technologies. All right, and so here's kind of a high level overview of the holistic approach for the BNZ objective. And the beyond net zero carbon overlays the investments that we know that we need to make to comply with Washington's Clean Energy Transformation Act, which I know many of you are familiar with. A big difference, or the key distinction here, is that CETA is purely focused on the electric supply. Beyond net zero enables us to look holistically across all of our portfolio and gas operations and allows customer end use to go beyond reducing emissions in other sectors such as transportation. PSE will continue to make infrastructure investments that support CETA and modernize the grid, as well as pipeline safety for the foreseeable future, ensuring energy is delivered safely and reliably. Over the next 2 years, PSE will evaluate additional investments that may support further carbon emissions reduction and mechanisms for cost recovery, including implementation of pilots to analyze low carbon fuels, enhanced operations practices such as reducing natural gas blowdowns, and more energy efficiency programs. To give you some more data points here, between now and 2045, PSE will take steps that include going coal-free by 2025, and our electric system will be carbon neutral by 2030, committing to net zero methane emissions on our local distribution system by 2022, increasing our use of alternative fuels for power generation, expanding customer programs such as energy efficiency and demand response, electrifying most of our fleet vehicles by 2030 and using lower carbon fuels for fleet vehicles that can't be electrified to offset remaining emissions by 2030. And then lastly, hybrid heat pumps that use clean fuels such as RNG and hydrogen for backup energy and peak demand periods, which I can elaborate on as this presentation goes forward. All right, so slowing climate change requires partnerships across all sectors, and I think that that's really the industry consensus. That's why we're building relationships with critical stakeholders as we act to drastically reduce carbon emissions. As we consider the opportunities to work together on climate solutions and energy, we need to ensure that the solutions pursued improve the livelihoods of all people on the planet. Climate change is a global problem, but its effects are profoundly local and often occur through long-standing patterns of inequality and racism. We at PSE must also ensure that the costs and rate impacts of our clean energy future do not place a disproportionate burden on disadvantaged communities. Our net zero carbon aspiration is built on our confidence in this region as one of the most creative and innovative in the world, coupled with Washington State's commitment to leadership and clean energy. So one of the primary objectives here is bringing community members and customers to the table to help shape that clean energy future. And we will do so by providing meaningful opportunities for customers to inform PSE approaches and develop stronger partnerships with customers to empower equitable and sustainable greenhouse gas reductions. Proof points of this in action would be our Beyond Net Zero Carbon by 2045 advisory group, where we are working to establish an external advisory committee comprised of a diverse set of community members, partners, technical experts, and others to provide meaningful input, inform, and enable opportunities for collective action. Our Green Direct program, which provides renewable energy directly to government and commercial customers in a partnership that enables them to meet their own clean energy goals. Community solar, in which PSE partners with communities to build local solar projects and allows customers to share the benefits of locally generated solar energy. And lastly, and most importantly, collaboration with BIPOC serving organizations on electric vehicle pilot programs, and really reaffirming our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let's see here. All right, awesome. Okay, so our customers want energy that is clean, safe, reliable, and affordable, and I think that much is clear. Our existing gas delivery infrastructure is a valuable system with much potential, and it's an essential part of the diverse energy supply that serves our customers now and in the foreseeable future. Complementary energy systems are needed to maintain reliability and affordability for our customers, and we believe that both pipe and wire, gas and electric, infrastructure will be necessary to reach the most reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy systems of the future. A complementary gas system offsets the need to build additional electric transmission and distribution facilities that are difficult to permit and site. Today, natural gas is an important source of energy to ensure homes are warm and the lights are on, especially in the winter in the Pacific Northwest. PSE's gas delivery system and our employees deliver energy through a massive network of more than 20,000 miles of pipes, valves, and sophisticated meters and monitors connected to our customers' homes and businesses. This network is and will be critical at times of peak demand, like a cold winter day when customers expected their homes to be warm and other energy supply options become very expensive and are not that efficient. We are neutral about what goes into that network of pipes. That's mostly natural gas today, but that also includes RNG, and in the future we'll have alternative fuels such as hydrogen. PSE is working to reduce carbon emissions of natural gas in many respects to support clean energy choices of customers. The pipeline infrastructure can be utilized for renewable gas, hydrogen, and other low zero carbon fuels to deliver energy with very low or zero greenhouse gas emissions. This in action would be an example. In April of 2021, we conducted a hydrogen testing pilot to expand our working knowledge of hydrogen and assess its potential in PSE's natural gas system, studying the operational safety and customer use challenges associated with its use. Sources of energy like RNG and hydrogen, as well as increased conservation and continuing to invest and improve our pipe distribution systems, are all key steps in reaching our aspirational Beyond Net Zero Carbon goal at 2045. But we can't do it alone, and we would really appreciate your continued support in this endeavor. And with that being said, I'm happy to open it up for questions.
Thank you, Brandon. Commissioners, do you have any questions of this presentation?
I have a couple if I could, Commissioner, just two of them really.
Mhm.
I picked up on one of the slides very early on that you said you would go beyond by helping other sectors enable carbon reduction across Washington. Does helping others include things like competing PUDs that have their own electrical systems and that type of thing? Is that part of what you're seeing as enabling others or helping other sectors? That's one question. And then the second one, you talk about renewable natural gas. Can you tell me, what do you mean by renewable? I mean, once you use natural gas in my furnace, it's gone, it's been burned, the heat's been taken out of it. So what do you mean by renewable natural gas? So if you could answer those, I'd appreciate it.
So renewable natural gas, PSE has been involved in the process from a local wastewater treatment facility for the last 30 years, and then was one of the first in the region to develop a pipeline quality RNG blend from a wastewater treatment facility. Essentially, RNG is capturing methane and other byproducts from what you would consider like a commercial agricultural operation or a wastewater treatment facility, and you are mixing that with conventional natural gas technology to make it cleaner. So, I mean, usually there's a defined mix ratio that's involved in that process, but that's what we mean when we're referring to RNG. Now, in the hydrogen space, it gets a little bit more complicated, and I'm happy to answer your questions on that down the line. But in reference to your first question with PUDs, I think that we always are going to have, a very cross-industry relationship with plenty of stakeholders. I think that this is a very linear focus for PSE at this point, just because we're trying to hash out a lot of the logistical details on what this is going to look like and how we reach this 2045 goal. But I think that we're always receptive to working with plenty of other partners in the community.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah.
Commissioner Zeta, go ahead.
Thanks for asking about RNG, Commissioner McGregor. Renewable natural gas is also captured from landfills, such as the Roosevelt landfill, and the state legislature recently passed new laws that will require that from solid waste management in the future in Washington state. It's pretty expensive now, and wind and solar used to be really expensive, but now they're widespread because they're cheaper than coal. So RNG will also come down. Brandon, thanks for this overview. Really appreciate it, and I appreciate PSE's commitment to clean energy. Somebody has background noise. I think it's Ms. Commissioner Downing.
Well, nice, good guess. It's quite quiet here, Zeta, so it's not me, so I'm not hearing what you're hearing.
I'd like to continue. I don't know where that background noise is coming from, but maybe muting would help, Commissioner Downing. So Brandon, continuing on the theme of natural gas, you have a commitment to decarbonize the fuel supply at PSE, which is terrific. And I'm wondering how that can happen if natural gas continues to be part of the fuel mix. You're probably aware of the scientific reports in recent years that have surprised us by showing that natural gas leaks a lot more than we thought and contributes a lot more to greenhouse gases than we thought. So natural gas is a much more significant greenhouse gas than CO2.
Was that the conclusion of your question? I just want to make sure that I captured all of it.
So yeah, my question is, how can PSC go carbon neutral when natural gas is part of the mix?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's an excellent question. So to start, as part of the carbon pledge, we plan to decarbonize our local distribution system by 2022. That's going to be a huge inroad in terms of reducing upstream methane leakage. But also, to your point, how do we decarbonize if we're using conventional natural gas? It's going to largely be a byproduct of where we go in research and development. So to give you additional context outside of RNG, we entered a joint partnership with Mitsubishi Power. And so that's going to be exploring all of our options that exist for green hydrogen resources and how we can develop a mix ratio to reduce emissions in that process. And so with hydrogen, it's difficult because there's a great use of end user degradation. So you need to have that mix just right. But RNG and hydrogen are the primary resources that we are utilizing and experimenting with to reach our goal. So it won't be with conventional natural gas as you see it today.
So I'm glad you brought up hydrogen. I'm curious about your source of hydrogen. I expect that initially your source of hydrogen will continue to be methane, CH4, since you get 4 hydrogens out of 1 molecule. That, of course, produces greenhouse gases because of the energy use and because of the byproducts. And I'm wondering if you have plans to transition to getting hydrogen directly from water. That, of course, costs more energy and produces less hydrogen, less bang for the buck, but it's a greener process.
Yeah, so I would need to probably defer to a subject matter expert internally on that question, but I'm happy to follow up with that.
I do have a couple other questions, but I'm guessing Commissioner Downing would like to jump in at this point.
Thanks, Commissioner. Thanks. Yes, I do. Whoops. So Brandon, in your cover slide, you talk about the climate change crisis as an existential threat. Could you put that in other words? Because I know that climate change is a major threat to the world, but I don't get that word existential.
Excuse me 1 second here.
Gotta love the Zoom meetings.
Commissioner, my name is Kira Pfeiffer. I'm a local government affairs manager. I can hop in a little bit here. PSC certainly believes that climate change is an urgent matter and needs to be acted on right now. And so part of our aspirational beyond net zero goal and the existential verbiage that you reference is a matter of urgency, and that it will require an investment of resources in order to kind of help move the needle in a cleaner energy future direction. And I'll turn it back over to Brandon now.
Thank you, Kira. And my next question is, Brandon, are you affiliated at all, or what involvement do you have with the LNG plant that's almost completed in Tacoma Tide Flats?
I mean, I provide supplemental support to the team whenever necessary, but to be honest, I don't really have that much of a connection with Tacoma LNG and the Tide Flats. So yeah.
Well, I'm talking about PSC, not you personally, but PSC. So is that a totally separate endeavor by separate parties other than PSC?
Yes, I believe.
Okay.
So Commissioner, I'll jump in here because I am familiar with the LNG project. So as you may be aware, the construction of the Tacoma LNG facility was a partnership between Puget Sound Energy and Puget LNG. The PSE portion is storage for our local customers in the Tacoma, Pierce County area. The Puget LNG portion is what I would call like the commercial side, which is maritime vessel refueling or transportation fueling. So it's a partnership.
Got it. Okay. I see. And last question is, there was a slide that said you're neutral about what goes into pipes. What does that statement mean? I didn't really understand the neutral part of that.
So what that means is we have a infrastructure that's highly effective at this juncture in time. We want to utilize that infrastructure. And so we're receptive to whatever industry technologies are developed to put into that infrastructure, whether it's hydrogen, RNG, or another mixed resource in the future. So, I mean, ultimately, whatever's going to allow us to most cost feasibly decarbonize, that's how we're impartial and neutral on that.
Well, thank you both. And I'd like to turn it back over to Commissioner Zita. I think she's got a couple more questions. Thank you, Zita.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Downing. I'm glad you asked about what goes in the pipes, Commissioner Downing, because that was one of my questions. The pipes currently carry natural gas, and it sounds like you're envisioning that they might carry hydrogen in the future. And so my question is, how would those pipes have to be retrofitted? Hydrogen is leakier than natural gas. Hydrogen is the lightest molecule. It leaks easily, a lot more easily than natural gas, which is a pretty big molecule. Also, hydrogen is highly chemically reactive, which means that it embrittles metals. When metal comes in contact with hydrogen, it gets weak and crackly after a while. So how would you have to retrofit those metal pipes which are carrying LNG so that they can safely carry hydrogen or a mix with enhanced hydrogen?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I really wish that I could give you a more detailed answer. I think that the purpose of the joint partnership with Mitsubishi Power is going to answer a lot of those questions. But in the near term, we're really factoring in a lot of those logistical details. And if you want specific engineering responses related to this inquiry, I'm happy to follow up with you, but.
Hey, Commissioner, I'll add a little color commentary to that because Brandon's absolutely right that we don't have all the answers, but we are working towards a cleaner energy solution in our natural gas pipes. So kind of high level, since you mentioned that hydrogen burns really hot and could lead to both pipeline degradation and end user degradation, like in their homes for their water heaters or stoves, et cetera. What we are looking at now is what we call like blended fuels. And that would be conventional natural gas, renewable natural gas, and hydrogen. There is a science to that, which kind of goes a little bit above my general knowledge, but when you blend the three together, there's a way to minimize the amount of degradation to the pipes and the end users. And that's what we would want to be in our sweet spot. As you probably know as well, ma'am, RNG also burns less hot than conventional natural gas. So with RNG being a little bit less on the BTU count and hydrogen being a little bit more, we can blend them together and try to hit that sweet spot where our customers are still getting the same rate of return on their infrastructure in their homes.
Thanks, Kira. I appreciate your attention to the different temperatures at which the different fuels burn. I was actually talking about when they're cold. When they're cold, they have different chemical properties, and hydrogen interacts with metal even when it's cold, even when it's not burning. And so that'll also be a question that your engineers will be dealing with. And I would be grateful to see that report when it's available. I have just a couple of other questions. Brandon, you mentioned that you're committed to pipes and wires. What about battery storage? You know, I've spent some time in Idaho recently. Idaho is a red state. There is no commitment to green energy in Idaho, but wind farms and solar installations are popping up everywhere because they're cost effective. They make good jobs and it works economically. Part of making good use of those renewable sources of energy is storing them. And battery power is a big part of that piece of the puzzle. If you said something about that, I'm sorry I missed it. Where is battery storage in PSE's portfolio?
Yeah, absolutely. So as it relates to this presentation, I'm going to again go back to the Mitsubishi Joint Power Agreement. So that actually has huge elements that relate to battery storage. So we're looking at, in terms of this agreement, you're looking at a conventional lithium ion battery that would be for short-term battery use to make renewable sources like wind and solar that you were referring to make them dispatchable. Ultimately, we're also looking at other storage technologies for hydrogen in that sense to make them a long-term storage battery. So I mean, those options are certainly being evaluated, and we are looking at pilots throughout our service territory as it relates to that, but it's certainly not anything that's off the table. I mean, we're going to need storage technology to, really make our renewables portfolio as cost effective as possible.
Great, thank you. I have one final question. PSE is taken a lot of steps to move toward a greener portfolio, and the Port of Olympia has agreed that we support the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, which also means taking steps in that direction. Does PSE have resources for agencies like the Port to help us with climate mitigation, to help us reduce our carbon emissions?
I'm gonna let Kira take that one.
Yes, we do. A few things that PSC could offer, I think, to the Port of Olympia. It's been a while since I've been to your buildings, but we would do an energy assessment on any of your buildings that you currently own, operate. I know that the Port of Olympia also owns a significant amount of real estate. So anything that you wanted to work on for conservation purposes, we can bring out our energy advisors and they'd be willing to work with the Port of Olympia to reduce consumption. I think that would be the primary thing I would mention to the Port of Olympia. Additionally, as it relates to transportation fuels, we would also be happy to explore any carbon neutral options with the Port of Olympia. I think you guys probably have a fleet. So, you know, any also options when it comes to the transportation sector.
That would be great. Our Citizens Advisory Committee is studying this issue right now, and I trust that our port staff can put you in touch with the Citizens Advisory Committee that is studying how to reduce our carbon emissions, and I'm sure they would welcome your input.
Excellent. Thank you for the invitation, Commissioner.
Thanks, Commissioner Zeta. That last one was a good question. And I want to thank you both, Brandon and Kira, for mostly Brandon for presenting this presentation, and Kira for backing him up on certain questions. It's very enlightening, and I look forward to future partnerships between the port and PSC.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, then, Commissioners, our next topic is called the Port EDC Bylaws, and our own Jerry Severe is presenting. Welcome, Jerry. Hi.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm bringing this to you at the request of the Commission. I think early on in April, we talked about the Port Economic Development Corporation around the Small Cities Program and awarding those. So I've come back with some background information, some questions of the Commission, wanting to get some direction on where you'd like us to take this. So next slide, please. A little bit of that history and background. The Port EDC was established as a public corporation under RCW 39.84, and that was for the Industrial Development Revenue Bonds. And that was established back in 1981 by Port Resolution 895, and that created a charter for the Port EDC as a separate entity than the Port of Olympia. For the purpose of, those were established, or it was established for the purpose of facilitating the economic development and other opportunities using the IDRB funding mechanisms. The port amended the EDC charter in 1983 and then again in 2007, neither of those which would impact or dissolve the EDC. The port, oh, back one slide, please. Tracy, oh, thanks. So the port EDC most recent bylaws were adopted in April of 2001. And again, as I mentioned, the Commission has questioned in the recent past whether the EDC can be inactivated or suspended, since we haven't had any action with those IDRB bonds for quite some time. Next slide, please. So that chapter on the RCW does not have a provision allowing the port to temporarily suspend its operations or to go into an inactive status. The port would either have to dissolve the port EDC to suspend operations, and this would not be a recommendation from staff because it may be beneficial in the future for the port to use those IDRB bonds. But there is no requirement in statute that we hold regular commission regular EDC meetings. Thus, the port could consider changing the bylaws and meet on an as-needed basis or some other method. And I've got some options here later. Next slide, please. So I guess the questions as I was putting this together is, what do we want to accomplish? I think that originally it was really getting awkward of putting the small cities fund through there because at one time the EDC funded those and then we ran out of funding and it got moved over to the port. So my questions is, do we want to hold those meetings annually? Do we want to continue to elect those members at large? We have 2 members that are on 2-year term basis. And does the Commission still want the EDC to review the small cities program? Again, as I mentioned, it was funded prior to that by the EDC, but now it's in the Commission or the Port Commission. And does the Port Commission want to eliminate the need for the members at large, or do we want to simply dissolve it? Again, that would not be staff's recommendation. Next slide, please. So there's the changes that Our issues that are identified in the most recent EDC bylaws, which again were last amended in 2002. Right now, it requires an annual meeting. It also requires that we have an biennial election of officers for those members at large, and for the port commissioners that serve on that. And our current bylaws are a little bit outdated with current technology. It talks a little bit about, mailing through the postal service and stuff like that, that we could update. And then there's also this resolution 2000, I think that's supposed to be 2017-01, that includes that review process of the EDC for the Small Cities Fund. And again, there's no mechanism for funding there, so it's a little redundant for the EDC to review it, and then the Port Commission to review it, and then the Port Commission to award it. And then next slide, please. Some of potential solutions that we've identified as staff is that we could, just change the bylaws. One way would be to amend the bylaws to require that we meet every 2 years instead of every year. And then we just continue that election of officers and appointment of our members at large on a biennial basis, so every 2 years. Or we could amend the bylaws to eliminate the members at large election and hold an annual meeting just to keep the port EDC viable. And we wouldn't have to call in those 2 members every time every year we needed to do that. It could just be a simple annual meeting right before a Port Commission meeting and just keep it going. We could also amend the bylaws to just meet only as needed under the Special Meeting Requirement Act for the Open Public Meetings Act. And then again, we could, keep the members at large. Again, these are all questions to you. But we also could extend the office terms that says that, if we're only going to meet as needed, maybe the members stay in those offices until such election has been taken place again. And again, I think that we need to amend the bylaws regardless, because they're just really out of date. Next slide, please. And then for that resolution 2017-01, we probably would need to change that resolution to remove that small cities program review from the Port EDC, or we can continue to do what we're doing right now and meet annually. So next slide, please. So again, this is just a lot of questions and time for you to discuss it and then give guidance to the port staff on how you'd like to move forward. Again, those were a lot of different options, a lot of different ways that we can do this, and we're open to any ideas that you might have. So I will turn it back to you guys for discussion.
Thanks, Jerry. Commissioners, questions or thoughts about the issues that Jerry has raised?
I have a comment and a question. And the comment is that the EDC was originally established because of the high interest rates that were going on back in the early 80s. And this was a way for a company to make use of some IDRB bond it does not affect the port's bond ratings and that type of thing, but it was an avenue for a business to get access for expansion or retaining employees and doing that kind of stuff through it. And I think there was one user of it, if I'm not mistaken. Was it the cheese factory or something like that? 3 of them? Okay. I only remember the one, but it was before my time. But my question is, I guess, is interest rates have been at a unusually low number for ever since that time. And so the use of it hasn't happened in a long, long time. And so what is the danger in eliminating the EDC? Can we not reform it should the need arise in 10 years from now if interest rates go back up to where they were back in the early 80s? Is there it seems to be now it's kind of outused its usefulness, considering that it was to impact the ability of a company to obtain interest at a more reasonable rate than what was being offered. But I'm just wondering if there's what is the danger in that? What is the con on that? There's my question.
As you mentioned, I think it would just be an effort to go and reestablish this. I think it'd be easier to just have an annual meeting every year and just say we had an annual meeting, keep it going, keep it viable. We are not completely done with it right now either. So I think there were 3 companies that utilized this back in, I'm thinking the early 90s to do this, and one of them is not completely paid off yet. So there's one bond still outstanding. It's very close to being paid off, but it's not yet. So we had Ostrom's Mushroom Farm, Springfield Mattress, and I'm drawing a blank right now for the third one. But anyway, I think that the mattress company isn't completely paid off yet. So we would need to wait till that happens for sure. And then, you know, again, I don't think we can predict the future about interest rates, and it could be back up in 2 years from now, who knows? So I think it would be easier to just keep it than to try to reform another corporation and go through all the work that it takes to do that. But that's my opinion.
Okay. I'll let the others provide comment and then I've got more. So go ahead.
Commissioner Zeta.
I agree with Jerry. We don't need the EDC right now for the small cities program. We do need to update some of the language. I agree, it doesn't make sense to dissolve it, but we should streamline what we're doing with it. We used to have 3 people on the EDC, but now there's only 1. One of the new guys on the POCAC has volunteered to serve on the EDC if we need somebody. So I agree with Jerry that we should just streamline it, update it, and keep it operating at a low level and move the small cities program into a more appropriate budget.
And just to clarify, Commissioner, the bylaws suggest that we have 2 members at large. We've had 2 on there ever since I've been here, but one resigned recently and we have not reappointed that position.
2 then, we have a volunteer for that position.
Back to you, Commissioner McGregor.
Well, and the budget, it comes out of the commission's part of the thing. So it's not part of the EDC at all. And it is a little redundant to have them meet just to go over something that they're going to bring forward. And it's kind of like a 3-step process when it really only needs to be a 2-step process. But I think that money is budgeted out of the commission, so it doesn't even touch the EDC anymore, where it used to before when we had money sitting there not doing anything. So I think it should be pulled out of there. Another option is rather than going through and advertising for people to be a part of the EDC board, 2 of them, is to create a subcommittee of the POCAC and let 3 of those or 2 of those people represent that portion of it. Therefore, we're still getting some citizen input, but it also gives them something to work on up until March. So usually in March, we have a deadline for applications, and then I think it's in April, we award whatever, if it's the criteria of the small cities is being met. So there's an option there that our Citizens Advisory Committee could be an avenue of which to use. So anyway, that's it. I think it needs to be cleaned up. I agree with you. I think we need to clean it up, get the technology part of it as you suggested. But I think it's just, I think it's, if you want to keep it, that's fine with me. But I think running it through the EDC is kind of run its course. And I think we need to do something a little different with it, but still keep it active because it is helping small cities do economic development.
I'm pretty much in agreement with my 2 fellow commissioners. Keep it in existence, move the small cities program under the port jurisdiction and eliminate that step. And whatever we can do to simplify the 2-person membership of the EDC, that would be great. So that's the extent of my comments.
I move that we appoint Kevin Decker of the POCAC as the 2nd member of the EDC during this transition.
So it's been moved to appoint Kevin Decker of the POCAC to fill the second seat on the EDC during this transition. Is there a second?
I think Commissioner McGregor seconded, but you're muted.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint Kevin Decker to the Economic Development Commission during this transition. And so for discussion, we have Sam Gibney would like to weigh in.
Yes, I'm going to actually ask legal counsel Felicia Brown to weigh in on this. I don't know if this has been properly noticed for this type of an action for appointment of members to the EDC. So I will let Felicia weigh in. I would advise against taking such an action in a work session and without proper notice.
Thank you, Sam. I actually went and looked at the agenda to kind of see what we did notice. On our agenda, we have Port EDC bylaws. Now, I'm not familiar with the process that the port has used to appoint these members to the EDC, but I do think that it would be prudent to bring this up at the next meeting so that way there can be notice given to those who are interested and allow for public comment as well.
I think that's valid. Thank you, commissioners. But I do think that's valid because I don't have the EDC bylaws in front of me, but I'm sure there's a little bit of a process to electing new members to the Port EDC. So, but in terms of Robert's rules, we have a motion and a second, so I'm duty bound to take a vote. But I do, in my comment.
Revise my motion. I would like to revise my motion.
Please do, Commissioner.
I move that we bring the matter of appointing a second EDC member to our next commission meeting.
So it's been moved to bring the matter of appointing a new EDC member to our next commission meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And does that work in our capacity, Executive Director Gibney, to okay. And Jerry, do you have a comment?
Well, I think this action would need to be done under the EDC agenda. So we would need to call an EDC meeting together. First of all, which we need to do, I mean, we haven't done our annual meeting and we have not done the election of officers. So I think we would need to call an EDC meeting together, and then that's when you would appoint them. It's not going to be under the Port Commission, it's under the Port EDC. So we can do that. And I was wondering, Tracy, can you pull up my slide of options again? Because I think from hearing you wanting to appoint another member, I think it leads us to the one option of that we would amend the bylaws that would require a biennial meeting instead of an annual meeting, and that we would continue the election of our officers for the two members at large on a biennial basis. I think what as far as the streamlining, calling them together every year just to say we're having an annual meeting and we're electing officers, and then there's no action for that EDC. By doing it every other year, it might be a little easy, streamline the process a little bit more. Because one of the other options was that we would eliminate the two members at large and we would just do this, annually as a Port Commission kind of meeting. But from what I hear you saying is you'd like to keep the two members. So if we can get direction today, maybe by a motion that picking one of these options, either the first option or the second option, the third option, that either one of those, then I can bring back amended bylaws that would come to a Port EDC meeting instead of a Port Commission meeting.
Because you're saying, I think I see what you're saying. So you're saying that the EDC, as an entity that's been created by the port, the EDC manages itself, both in terms of bylaws and election of vacancies or filling vacancies. Right. Okay.
Yeah, so any amendment to the bylaws, the resolution, all of that stuff is going to need to be done under an EDC meeting. But again, we just need direction on how you want to do that. We can pull together an EDC meeting and amend the bylaws, appoint another member, and decide if we want to do this on a biennial basis or an annual basis. Just wanting direction.
So there's a motion on the table. It's not clear to us, since we don't have the bylaws before us, whether bringing the matter of appointing a second EDC member should occur at an EDC meeting or a commission meeting, but we do have a motion before us.
It would need to occur at a Port EDC meeting.
And Jerry, the three commissioners, of course, are members of the EDC as well. So the three of us plus the remaining member can entertain Mr. Decker, for example, as a candidate at the very next EDC meeting, and we could fill that vacancy. And then we could request that bylaws be revised and also vote on a anyway. So I guess we're going to vote right now. We're going to weigh in on how often we want to meet. Either I'm looking at these quickly. I'm trying to paraphrase. Either meet on a biennial basis, or eliminate the members at large election, or meet on an as needed basis. And so, so Commissioner Zeta, in terms of, I'm trying to keep this in terms of Robert's rules. So I think that what we want to see happen is that the EDC have a meeting, which will be in attendance, and we can, cover these issues at that time. And so I think, yeah.
Are you offering a friendly amendment to my motion, Commissioner Downing?
Friendly, yes, I am.
Okay.
A friendly amendment would be that we make a motion to have an EDC meeting in the near future and consider election of officers and bylaw changes at that meeting.
I'll second that motion. Or I'll accept that friendly amendment.
Thank you.
So let me make a comment before we go further. There is no hurry on this at this particular time. We asked staff to bring back some information. Jerry has done that, brought us up some options. I would like to have time to really look at these in relation to the resolution and to see how that's going. And before I move forward on any vote for anything yet, because there's a lot of ors and a lot of ands in there, and I want to clarify and see what the resolution that established it states, and then go from there. And then, but there's no real urgency in appointing a member at large or doing any of this at this point, but it's certainly something that could be brought up at another work session with some more options. Gives us all a bit of time to think about it. And I'm just not prepared to move forward with anything at this point. So I'll just hold back.
There's a motion on the table.
So
Can I clarify that?
yeah, we're going to vote on this motion, Commissioner McGregor and Commissioner Zeta, because the motion's been moved and seconded, but we're not quite done with discussion. I might just say that, I see no harm in having the EDC meeting. I didn't say it's going to be tomorrow. I'm going to leave that up to Jerry, but we're going to have an EDC meeting to consider these things that Jerry has brought forward. And I hope, I'm sure we can study the issue a little bit more in advance of that EDC meeting. I think what Jerry is just a little bit of direction here, because she says A, B, or C. And so we need to give her some guidance as to, how we'd like to march forward. Go ahead, Jerry.
I think let's do that after this, one thing at a time. How about that?
Oh, okay. So one last comment, Jerry, before we take this vote. Did you have a comment?
I just want to clarify that the bylaws currently state that we will hold annual elections, and we have not done that for 2 years. So we are already out of compliance. I do think we need to hold a meeting and decide, revise the bylaws and, do something, because we haven't done that for 2 years. So we did hold a meeting earlier this year, but we didn't do elections. And so just to fix things so that we're in compliance with our own bylaws.
Good. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded that the Port Commission requests staff to schedule a EDC meeting, at which time we would have election of members and as well review bylaw changes. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Great. Now, as to the second question, I vote for the last option. Clean things up, have meetings when required. That's not formal, but that's my preference, since you asked for the commissioner's preference.
So Commissioner Zeta would like the meet only as needed basis. And, you know, hold election of officers, appoint members at large at that time.
That's after we get this all settled.
Right. How about you, Commissioner McGregor? Do you have a preference every year biennially or as needed?
I think you're muted.
I think on as needed basis.
Good. Okay, I'm okay with as needed as well. I appreciate the conversation to review the existence of the EDC and whether or not we need it and so forth. And so I think we're all on the same page that we do need it, want it to continue to exist. And we have an as needed basis, which we have a need. So we're going to have a meeting and then we'll take it from there.
Is that clear, Jerry?
Very clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank
We
you.
will schedule an EDC meeting, and I will work with our legal counsel to do a red line of our bylaws that would be available at that meeting for you to review and approve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Okay. Okay, moving on to our last topic for today, which is upcoming topics and agenda items. Our own Sam Gibney. Sam.
Great, thank you, commissioners. Next slide, please. So first wanted to note that we are somewhat following in the vein of City of Tumwater, and we're actually going to cancel a couple meetings this month. We made mention last week that we were going to cancel August 16th. It so happens that our one topic for the 9th and that was Capitol Lake letter. The letter for the comment letter due date for the Capitol Lake Deschutes Estuary EIS has been extended to August 29th. So staff is going to take advantage of that additional time and bring the letter back to you on the 23rd. And so that's not quite, we just made that change this morning. So that will happen on the 23rd. The new market development agreement and interlocal agreement, we are still working on finalizing language on that agreement. And so we will be bringing that to you for action on the 23rd as well. Also on that meeting, we have our Q2 financial report, and then the ILW Local 47A contract. We'll be bringing that as an action other. Next slide. And because we're going out a few weeks here because of those cancellations, we did want to give you a look to Tuesday, September 7th. This is a special commission work session because of the Labor Day holiday. And this is the time we'll be really having a very interactive, we hope, session with the commission looking at 2022 budget priorities, and as well as following up on strategic planning and budgeting with some of the issues that have been brought forward by Malfoster and Alonji. And so we'll be bringing back recommendations for the commission on that. So we are looking for having a good full schedule for that September 7th. I think we just crossed off Port EDC bylaws. And so we have that, and then we still have a contracting process discussion and update. We'll be looking to, we do have that on the calendar. It keeps kind of moving with that, but we will be bringing that back to you here somewhere in the near future. Next slide. And these are a list of topics that we are looking to have scheduled before the end of the year, just making sure that we're not losing track of anything. If there's a topic on here that we don't have, that you believe that the commission has agreed that we're going to schedule it, by all means, this is the time to let us know so we can make sure that we can calendar that appropriately. Okay.
So thank you, Sam. Commissioner Zeta, you had a question.
Missing item. I'm sorry if it was on the calendar and I missed it. Tribal land acknowledgement.
We will be bringing that back. We are still working to have a follow-up with the Nisqually tribe. We've been looking to schedule that, so I don't have that yet calendared, but what we are continuing to work on that at the staff level.
So I think that should be on the unassigned work topics. We don't want that to fall off
Sure.
our
Yep.
radar, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can we go back to the calendar? Let's start with the first one and scroll down. Let me see, because things have changed since our packet. Okay, so you have the new market development agreement and interlocal agreement with the city of Tumwater for action.
Correct.
I didn't see that on advisory. Did I miss that?
Yes, it's been before the commission as advisory.
Now, I have not seen either the development agreement or the interlocal agreement. We should see those agreements at advisory before they come to us for action.
So as it has been explained, we are looking to finalize the language on those, and in consultation with the chair, we are moving this item of business forward as action on the 23rd.
So the commission has not seen either the development agreement or the interlocal agreement. So the advisory did not include either of those agreements. We need to see those agreements at advisory before we can act on them. So I move that our first time that we see these agreements, they come to us as advisory so that we can consider them and so that we can take public comment on them.
Well, thanks, Commissioner Zeta, but I would just like to point out that that particular motion is out of order, because what we're doing today is a discussion with Sam about upcoming topics, but any item that appears or does not appear on a given agenda for a given work session or commission meeting, it's perfectly acceptable to make a motion to change something from advisory to action to advisory and what have you, but that typically takes place at the beginning of the meeting. So, but your comments are noted.
I appreciate your acknowledgement that it is appropriate to move items from action to advisory, and I am moving that now well in advance. And I ask for my fellow commissioners' support that we consider this at advisory, since we have seen neither of these agreements. Do I have a second?
Yeah, Commissioner, I'm gonna have to just say point of order, which is to repeat that any given agenda item, when it comes to a meeting, that would be the appropriate time to make a motion to change the order of the meeting or add or delete any given item. Thank you.
With all due respect, Commissioner Downing, there's nothing preventing us from requesting a revision at this point in our discussion. So I do request that revision, and I ask for a second.
So Commissioner Zeta, per Robert's rules, the chair has ruled on a point of order, which is on your motion, and you may appeal. So if you say the word appeal,
Appeal.
and
I
okay.
appeal the chair's
So is
ruling.
there, so the motion or the ruling of the chair has been appealed. Is there a second to the appeal? Okay, hearing no second, your appeal is dismissed, and the point of order stands, which is that your concerns are noted, and at the appropriate meeting, you may make a motion to move something from action to advisory to consent or whatever you'd like. So, or do you have any other questions, Commissioner Zeta?
I have a comment. The public should know that Tumwater, bless their hearts, have scheduled a community workshop on this matter, on the Panattoni interlocal agreement with the port for this week. This Thursday, the public can hear about the Panattoni proposal on Thursday at 5:30 on a Zoom meeting at Tumwater, and the public is welcome to comment and ask questions at that meeting. So I want to make that announcement to the public and thank Tumwater for their open public engagement on this matter.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Commissioner Zeta, for that public service announcement. May I remind the commissioners that it's not a noticed public meeting of the port. Therefore, some or all of us may attend that Tumwater public hearing, but please do not speak because that makes it a public meeting of the Port Commission. Thanks. Did you have a comment, Sam?
Yes, I did. And thank you for that reminder, Commissioner Zeta. We were able to confirm that meeting just this past Friday with Tumwater. We will be pushing that notice out on our listserv and our social media accounts, et cetera. Port staff will be making presentation at that meeting, and hope to answer questions that the public might have. As Commissioner Downing has noted, we are not noticing this as a public meeting of either of the bodies of the council, the City Council of Tumwater or the Port Commission. And therefore, if you do, and I believe that the council members of the City of Tumwater are being actively discouraged from attending. I believe it will be recorded so you can view it later. Should you choose to attend, we do ask that you refrain from making any comments or engaging in any type of a chat function, as that may run us afoul of the OPMA. So again, following the lead of the City of Tumwater and actively working with them to host this joint public workshop.
So just to reiterate, members of the public can attend this Thursday, 5:30. Go to the City of Tumwater's website, and there's a Panattoni community workshop where you can comment. If we could please go back to the calendar, I have a question about one other item. Go down one more, please. One more. It's really hard to read the ones that are crossed out. I don't know if you can see that. Can we go down one more? Something on there was about leases. No, maybe not. Contracting process discussion, maybe it's buried in there. I heard through the grapevine that the port is renegotiating the Weyerhaeuser lease. If that's so, I request that we have a work session on that and not be asked to rubber stamp it as action without due review. We need to review the lease. We need to be able to take a good look at it and get our questions answered.
Thanks, Commissioner Zeta. I think that's a reasonable request. However, I do think that anytime we have lease negotiation, et cetera. Certain things fall within executive session and may be discussed there, and certain things may not be. I'll lean on our legal counsel to keep us moving in the right direction vis-a-vis that. And that's where what we're looking at.
In any case, I do not want to see the Weyerhaeuser lease come to us without due advance consideration. We need to see it in advance. We need to be able to ask questions about it. We should not be simply asked to rubber stamp it as action on our first viewing. The marine terminal leases have significant impact at the Port of Olympia now and into the future. So I ask that the commissioners be given advance information on any Weyerhaeuser lease that may be renegotiated. And please don't blindside us with that.
Thanks, Commissioner, for that comment. As I say, I'm pretty sure that would come to upcoming executive session at the appropriate time. I did have one thing to comment on, and that is that Commissioner McGregor is like on me for having the mid-year review for our executive director done, and I appreciate that. And so I think Felicia will be sending something out to you in advance. And so like to get that meeting scheduled. We're now in August, so for sure get that done this month. And Felicia, did you have a comment on that?
Yes, Commissioner. Sam should have her self-evaluation ready as you requested by the end of this week. And Tracy will be reaching out this week as well to schedule an executive session.
Well, thanks, guys. We're, as I say, we're off the hook in terms of a couple of meetings coming up, the 9th and the 16th, but that doesn't mean we can't have an executive session to review the performance of an employee. So.
Well, my wife is having surgery, major surgery, so that's going to be a complication for me.
Oh, got it, Commissioner Zeta. Well, we'll work with you on that, and good luck to her for sure. Jeez. Okay. Is there anything else in regard to our upcoming agenda items? Are we done with that topic?
We're done.
Good. Okay, I guess we're done for the day. Thank you for a good meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Have a good day, everyone.